our main speaker, Darcy, whose topic is, or at least title of the talk is, Compass of the Heart, Lessons from the Road. And for those who may not be familiar with Darcy, I kind of have known her for so many years. She's Darcy. I mean, she's an angel on earth here. So, but for those who are not as familiar, Darcy Davis Beghein, a Coptic minister since 2008, combines her training as a teacher, life coach, and singer to bring healing to her corner of the world. Combining her study of spiritual philosophies and disciplines of the mind-body-spirit connection, Darcy helps others understand the spiritual side of success by working in harmony with the universal laws. For over 40 years, she has worked in schools and spiritual organizations as a successful speaker, educator, inspirational coach, and singer. Her approach empowers people to manifest their dreams through transformative thinking and decisive action to create conscious living, loving, and being. Her engaging teaching style invites people to incorporate practical practices with heartstream living to actualize a life they love. And Darcy currently lives in the Phoenix area with her husband, Jim, and her sidekick, Max.
Well, out here in Arizona, students are already back in school in many places. This is the time of year that reminds me of days gone by when I would write that what I did on my summer vacation for my new teacher at the beginning of a new school year. Our summer trip began with a destination and a dream. When my husband Jim joined me in retirement in April of this year, we came to a new crossroads in our relationship, dual retirement. Jim had always held some kind of job since he was a 10-year-old paper boy. We loved to travel, and the pandemic really cramped our style. Collectively, we were in uncharted waters, but we were ready to dive in and take to the road. We're the kind of people who can relate to Susan Sontag's quote, "I haven't been everywhere, but it's on my list." Jim is the consummate planner. His career choices have included aspects of planning, whether project planning for county government or planning for clients' financial futures. Planning is in his blood. He's a natural. We make such a great pair, and since we love to travel, he does the planning and I love letting him plan our trips. This trip was no different. Besides, with the pandemic, it had been a long, dry spell for people who thirst for adventure. Jim planned the route and the dog-friendly accommodations for our dog, Max. We would be traveling from Arizona to Oregon, then across the country to the land of our birth, Michigan, then back to Arizona again. This was going to be quite the journey. I have affectionately christened our 8,200-mile summer vacation the epic road trip of 22. I chose the title of today's talk based on the idea that surely there would be lessons along the way. At first glance, it appeared that we were merely hitting the road, embarking on a new adventure, and getting away from the hustle bustle. However, I quickly realized that number one, I would have plenty of material for this talk, and number two, I gave the green light to the universe to teach away. So I strapped myself in and got ready to learn. The first lesson may have been one that seemed obvious at first, but I realized after riding shotgun in the car for 400 miles the first day, it's good to choose your traveling companions wisely. When you're locked inside a vehicle that is speeding along the interstate for that many miles, that many days, and that many weeks, This is something that is particularly important. This also applies to life. When you choose your companions wisely, there is less conflict. When you do encounter conflict, it is considerably shorter in duration. When you choose your companions wisely, there is a potential for a higher degree of relational enjoyment and enrichment, such as deeper connection, learning more things about each other, and more laughs and entertainment value on the way. You have lots of time to work up new material for someone who thinks they know everything about you. My late friend, musician Carol Johnson, wrote and sang about finding good company on the journey home. Jim and our trusty canine Max were definitely good company, the best of traveling companions. I, on the other hand, needed to remind myself to be a good travel companion. I passed out snacks or drinks when asked. I even stayed awake to be the ever attentive co-pilot and offer any navigation tips. I realized early on that some of my helpful tips would be better kept as an inner monologue. After all, Jim is the best driver I know, so he really didn't need to hear, nor did he fully appreciate my advice about his speed, how close he might be getting to the back of the car in front of us, or whether or not a turn signal might be the polite way to indicate a lane change. The lesson is two-sided. And if I expect Jim and Max to be good traveling buddies, then I needed to do the same. It's only fair. As I said before, our trip started with a destination in mind. We traveled from Arizona to Portland, Oregon for the first family gathering celebrating the marriage of my youngest, Jana, and Rachel, our wonderful daughter-in-law. I performed their marriage over Zoom during the pandemic in 2020. The reception took some time to coordinate. After 3 tries and 21 months, we were finally getting together in person to celebrate the occasion. Friends and family from all over the country joined Jana and Rachel for their first in-person wedding reception. It was a great way to begin our trip, finally being able to honor 2 of our favorite people for such a special occasion. I've often referred to planet Earth as the relationship planet. I truly believe we are here to learn a multitude of lessons through relationships. Wedding receptions provide the perfect backdrop to practice patience and loving kindness. We met a lot of new people at Jana's and Rachel's events. Some of them were Rachel's parents and family members, whom we met the night before the reception at a family meet and greet, a party that was set aside for family that came from out of town. Admittedly, I was a bit nervous going into the meet and greet, having never met Rachel's parents, though our children had been together for a dozen years. This lesson from the road for this event especially was to follow your heart. This has been true for me in all kinds of situations and scenarios, but it especially applied to meeting the family of our daughter-in-law. When I led with my heart and a genuine friendliness, people do respond to me, always. My heart never leads me astray. When I activate the compass of my heart and allow my heart to take the lead and guide me, I am in tune with the best of me. When love is my guide, I listen better, I smile brighter, laugh often, and invite an ease with others that allows them to speak more freely. When I allow my heart to take the lead, I open space to let others be more relaxed and engaged. I watched my nervousness dissolve and a spirit of friendliness emerge that allowed me to speak to everyone in the room that night at the meet and greet. I was able to fully enjoy myself and the others who were there. I wasn't surprised by this, but I was affirmed by what I know. When I follow my heart, I set the stage for the divine to shine through. As Psalms 19, verse 14 says, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord. The beginning of the trip was off to a strong start. I knew there would be many times that I would be reminded to follow my heart as we followed the road. A work of heart is also about following my intuition. There would be many times that I needed to rely on intuition to navigate those interpersonal relationships on this journey. Fortunately, the voice of my heart is one with whom I am intimately familiar. I'm always rightly and richly rewarded when I listen to that heartfelt voice and follow her guidance. From Portland, we drove to Washington State. Now my sister Sherry and brother-in-law Doug were caravanning with us. There were more things to see and do with them. We visited Seattle for a quick driving tour, drinking in the beautiful sights of the city, Puget Sound, and Lake Washington. We were bathed in the aura of the natural beauty of that part of the world. Green grass and tall cedar trees, colorful hydrangeas, rhododendrons, and roses. In the distance stood the snow-covered grandeur of Mount Rainier. This brings me to the next lesson of the road. Take your cues from nature. I love to watch birds and wildlife. I carry a pocket-sized book by Ted Andrews, which tells me the spirit messages of the different animals that I see in a day. I do believe that they get my attention when they want to share their messages. While walking the dog at our motel north of Seattle, I thought I saw a dog off leash out of the corner of my eye. When I turned, what I saw was a coyote trotting down the path, not far from us. Curious, I stopped, and it stopped and stared at us for a little bit, and then turned and trotted down the way in the direction that it was going. Max didn't really seem to have noticed that there was a dog because it was far enough away, another canine was far enough away from him. But I loved that moment. Its message was about wisdom and folly and balancing work and fun, trusting that all is working according to plan, and a reminder to do what's best, even if it is not easy. Einstein once said, "Look deep into nature and you will understand everything better." How true. When I expect to get inspiration from the natural world, I'm never disappointed. There is a vast array of knowledge that can be imparted to us from our natural surroundings, from plants, animals, weather, sun, moon, stars, signs along life's highways and byways. There is something there for all of us to learn. If we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear and the heart to feel. Gretel Ehrlich puts it another way. Everything in nature invites us to constantly be what we are. The beauty followed us along the freeways, taking on different colors, shapes, depths, and landscapes. We made our way across the country. Our next lesson was ever present. Pay attention. This is a life lesson, of course, but it takes on significant meaning when you are traversing new territory, driving through different states with different speed limits and possible hazards along the way. I did very little driving on this trip because Jim would rather drive than ride. So that makes me the navigator most of the time. Jim had received a cool road atlas when he retired, and I loved looking at that map every day. Most of the drive was straightforward until we were hunting down the next motel, but I loved looking through those maps. Like a good navigator, I paid attention to the signs, gave the warning if I saw a sheriff up ahead, noted construction and road work ahead signs, which being summer, there were dozens of them. Paying attention got us safely into the lanes that merged into one lane, where those work areas impeded our path. Paying attention, though, allowed us to see the eagle sitting on a broken piece of driftwood in the shallow riverbed as we sped by. Paying attention, we saw the ever-changing landscape, snow-capped mountains driving across Washington, through Idaho, into Montana. Through Montana, we understood the concept of big sky, the West that seems larger than life. From there, we headed east to South Dakota, then south to Iowa. We left Iowa in torrential thunderstorms with full attention on the road until we finally found the rainbow. Paying attention is not only about what we saw and heard along the way. Each place we encountered had a feel to it. Part of what we love about the Northwest is the feeling of acceptance and openness that we get from the people, especially in Portland and Seattle. It was clear to me that I needed to pay close attention to how I felt as we traveled and let my intuition speak to me. We traveled through many places that showed us incredible beauty, but did not necessarily feel as welcoming and as inviting as others. It was a good reminder to be discerning when exploring the unfamiliar. After a long overdue visit to Southern Indiana to see my brother Gary and sister-in-law Linda, we finally reached Michigan, the home of our births and childhoods. This was the place of my youth, where I grew up, went to college, married my first husband, raised my children, and have so many heartfelt memories of people, places, and promises. It's where both our roots began. It's been said that home is where your story begins. I love that idea because we all have our own stories. Those stories have shaped us and made us who we are today. Some of us have rewritten the parts of our stories that no longer serve us, but the core of us began at home. They say you can never go home. I think to some degree that is true, but it needs more context. I used to sing along with John Denver. Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home, country roads. Well, Michigan, not West Virginia, is my home. But we both have changed so much in the almost 14 years that I've lived in Arizona. By this time, we were beginning our third week of travel. We were ready to land somewhere for a while and relax. The family event busyness at the beginning of the trip, followed by a cross-country haul, had made us road weary. It was time for ourselves, just the two of us, and of course, Max. We arrived at our first place, a cottage in the woods overlooking the Muskegon River. When you're booking an Airbnb property, sight unseen, you're taking a chance that the description, photos, and reviews are truthful. As I said before, Jim is a great planner and researches a multitude of properties before choosing a place. We have rarely been disappointed in our accommodations. This place was cozy and comfortable enough. It was situated on a large enough lot to provide privacy from the neighbors. This would be our home away from home for the next week. That next week, the lesson was be still and find balance. Jim and I have somewhat different traveling goals. When I come back to Michigan, I want to see people, lots of people. Jim wants to fish. We know this about each other. So there are no surprises when I'm done being still and want to go visiting. We were able to balance through compromise on this trip. Since we only had one vehicle and the place we were renting wasn't really big enough to entertain others, plus we always had Max to consider. Through good communication, we both got what we needed. I even got to attend a cousin's wedding in the southern part of the state, so I got to see lots of relatives. This week-long stay on the river gave us both lots of time to be still, to rest, to meditate, to read, to enjoy nature and each other's company. We both needed a rest since we each ended up being sick for a day. First me, then Jim. Our bodies needed a rest from the fast pace of the previous weeks. In the second rental, we were in a more remote spot, though there were neighbors on either side of us. It had no internet and iffy cell service, so we were definitely out in the Tules. The spot was also on a small branch of a river. The large deck provided a beautiful, comfortable place to relax, be still, find balance and peace. We were surrounded by nature, so many different birds delighting us with their bird song and antics. I find watching birds so relaxing. From the kitchen window, we saw 2 baby robins as they were close to leaving the nest. First one flew away, leaving its sibling behind. The other little guy was uncertain. We watched it attempt to jump over the edge of the nest, then get scared and settle back in. Mama Robin was close by, still bringing it food, patiently waiting for her baby to find its courage and leave the nest, which it finally did the next day. This brings me to another life lesson. Stay curious and nurture your sense of wonder. We were immersed in natural beauty every day, which makes it easier to grasp your childlike curiosity and sense of awe in the workings of the world around us. Having been a teacher, I worked at nurturing that sense of wonder in children of all ages. That has kept me in the habit of nurturing my own curious nature and delighting in the miracles and mysteries of this world. Not only on the physical plane. The hardest lesson of the trip happened the last week we were in Michigan, just before we were scheduled to come to Grand Rapids. I came down with shingles. We had already made some plans to see family and friends while there, plans that we had to end up canceling. I was still going to reach out to other friends to try to grab lunch or coffee for a quick visit. But shingles had a different surprise for me. We even had a surprise birthday party that we were supposed to attend and see a whole bunch of people, and that plan got changed. All of that blew up with one diagnosis. I called my sister and arranged so that we could come back to her place. I needed to get a handle on what this virus was and how it was going to react, how I was going to react to it, especially with 2,100 miles to return back to Arizona. Angela N. Blount writes, sometimes the most scenic routes in life are the detours you didn't mean to take. The lesson, accepting life's detours, was now at play. The culmination of the month-long epic trip of 22 enveloped all of the lessons of the road. These really are life lessons, not exclusively lessons for travel. Traveling back to Arizona required us both to be good traveling companions, demonstrating kindness and extra patience. I've been following my heart in search of answers as to why this virus had to happen at all, let alone on a long road trip. My heart said this: be grateful in all things. Give thanks for your loving traveling companions, for the care and consideration they offered you. Continue to observe nature and delight in the birds and animals you see from your car window. Send them blessings. Thank them for showing up on your path. Pay attention to what your body, mind, and soul needs. Pay attention to the signs along life's road. Remember your longtime mantra: be still and know that I am God. Now you have to be still. Journal more, meditate often, search within yourself. This is where you find balance. This is where you find peace. This is where you find love. Stay curious about this journey and what this leg of it has to offer. For when you bring your sense of wonder into your world, you bring more acceptance of what is. Even if it feels like a detour that changed your plan, there have been treasures to behold. Though presented through my personal lens and experiences, these lessons are universal to us all. As you travel in life, by foot, by car, train, boat, or plane, remember these lessons, which encompass deeper truths than mere travel tips from the road. Marianne Radmacher reminds us, listen to the compass of your heart. All you need lies within you. These are but a few lessons from the compass of our collective hearts. Travel light, take the high road, and whenever, wherever you go, go with all your heart. Until next time, thank you.
Wonderful presentation, Darcy. I lost track of how many different rules and guidelines that you came up with. Did you put together a summary of how the specific lessons you were talking about? Because you gave such wonderful stories to go along with them. I was so caught up in the stories that I lost track of the previous lessons.
Actually, when my heart spoke to me at the end, it kind of culminated all of them.
Okay.
In that, if that was helpful.
Okay, so there's one to kind of fall back on if we can't remember the others. But that's the good thing about recording these for YouTube. We can go back and take notes.
Well, I could go back and mention them because I did highlight them in my notes. If you want me to tell you what the lessons were, they go in this order. Choose your traveling companions wisely. Follow your heart. Take your cues from nature. Pay attention. Be still and find balance. Stay curious and nurture your sense of wonder and accept life's detours.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So just to open the floor, if anyone has questions or comments for Darcy. Yeah, Michael Joy.
Okay.
It seems like the last two are kind of the same. It's like when life hands you detours, it's like wonder and get curious about it. I had a teacher at school who taught us about using the word wonder. And I've used it at different times. Sometimes I resist what gets in the way of my plans. But if I sit back and just say, well, I wonder where this is taking me, or I wonder what this is for, or, you know, if my flight is delayed, maybe I meet somebody interesting. It's just, you know, to stay in that moment. Sometimes it's not easy.
Not easy, but there always is a reason. Even if we don't ever figure it out, there's always a reason.
If that statement, all is in divine order, is true, then of course we need to look at everything, you know, the detours. Why was this given to me? What am I supposed to learn? So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just listening to a video talk that Wayne Dyer's daughters did, and they were saying that Wayne always used to say that you should take the path of least resistance. He had listened to a song and he said, can you pick out the line in it that I don't agree with? And it was, don't follow the path of least resistance. And he said, no, you should follow the path of least resistance, because that's what you're being guided to do. It may appear to be more difficult in some ways, but if you really are meant to follow it, it's the path of least resistance, and you'll learn lessons along the way that you hadn't planned on. And so that's what you're saying. That kind of reinforces what I had just heard.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that you think look to be like problems are really opportunities to learn something new. They're not really problems, but they're new experiences that will help you advance or help somebody else advance.
I truly believe that.
Hey, Darcy, this is Pete.
Hey,
Great,
Pete.
great singing, man.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. I want to know, is your husband like nature?
He loves nature.
Does
Yes.
he? Does he abhor a vacuum?
What did you say?
Abhor a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's a good one, Pete.
I thought that Nancy's reading laid the groundwork for your talk really nicely.
Oh, beautifully.
Yes.
Absolutely beautifully. I love it when those come together. Again, divine order.
Right. When they said the heart has its own central nervous system.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that's where we feel all our emotion and.
I've never heard it described that way, but I have understood that there are more neurotransmitters going from the heart to the brain than the other way around.
Yep. Absolutely. It's our second brain. Our heart is our second brain.
I know one of the things that trips me up a lot is I'm too much in my head.
With you, sister.
I enjoyed the presentation. Personally, I was in the travel business for many years. And when you were explaining the a beautiful presentation. I was kind of going back to all the places we visited with all the education, the emotions, the feeling, the love of your co-travelers. So it really brought me back to some
And all the
Happy time.
detours, right?
the detour. So thank you. It was absolutely magnificent.
Welcome, thank you.
Wow, I don't think I've ever heard this much quiet space in one of our sessions
Well,
before.
it's kind of a introspection kind of talk.
Yeah,
You know?
there's just so much to think about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got a question for Darcy. Hey,
Yes.
Darcy, you ever hitchhike, man? Hitchhike?
I have, yes, yes,
I am.
that's a whole other story.
That's something I've never done.
It's
Mm-mm.
cool, man. You'll like
How old were you when
I
you
a
hitchhiked?
lot of strange rides, man.
My sister and I were small, and it was actually my mother. We were at the cottage, and something happened with the car, and she had to sing a solo at church. And so she come to ride down with some farmer that was going into town and pump water. We had to climb up in the back of the truck. I was mortified, even though I wasn't that old, but I was just mortified that we're driving to church in an open back of a pickup so that mother could get there to sing. That's my hitchhiking story.
How
And
did
in
you get
days,
home
That
then?
wasn't,
I think
wasn't really illegal.
What's that?
In those days, that wasn't really illegal.
Right, it was just
Before
embarrassing.
seatbelts.
And then we were close enough to friends that we could, try to call my dad or try to call for help. I don't even remember where he was. He may have still been in Big Rapids and not been there, but yeah, had car trouble. Farmer Bill helped us out.
Well, the reverse of that is, have you ever picked up a hitchhiker?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
have. I'm so old I can't remember.
Then I
It
was
doesn't
young.
have anything
I
to
was
do with my
little.
memory. It's just a long, long way back.
Yeah.
Picked up
You
a
don't see many
hitchhiker on
hitchhikers these
Christmas
days.
Day.
Mm-mm.
So
You
on
did.
Christmas
I
Day, we were leaving town, we were leaving Big Rapids, and it was snowing. It was a really bad snowstorm, and there was this, who we assumed was a Ferris student, with a sign that said Grand Rapids. And so that's where we were going. And so my mom said, "Move, Bob, we've got to stop and give this kid a ride." And again, my sister and I are like mortified because we have to scoot way over and let this good looking young man sit next to us in the back seat. He was so grateful though. So it was worth it.
I have something I want to show you guys. I couldn't resist this. It's a Dana Zebarth.
Oh,
There are no
Absolutely.
wrong turns when life is an adventure.
it's a good
Oh,
one.
very
I couldn't
good.
resist it.
That is true.
There's always, if you look deep enough, whatever your troubles are or whatever problem you're having, if you really think about it, there is a benefit in all things.
Yeah.
We just have to analyze it and be thankful for the benefit that came from this inconvenient happening.
Well, Rumi says life is rigged in my favor. I really do.
I
I really
choose
do
to
try
believe
to.
that.
Yeah.
I choose it.
I
Me
didn't
too.
get that. What is Rumi?
Rumi says life is rigged in my favor.
Oh, wow.
It's actually
Yeah,
part of my email, my little email
nice.
sign off has that quote. Everything
Darcy.
works out for me. Life is rigged in my favor.
I'll take that bet 9-1, Darcy.
What's that?
I'll take that bet 9-1.
Just a couple days ago, I got I get notes from the universe from Tut University. And it was talking about how I created my life, with, vision and all of this stuff like that. And then it went on to say, and that's how I change it, how I can change it. And it was just so, it just hit me. It was very timely for me to get that.